right, welcome back. Welcome back to day 2 of our rocket build. We are going to continue the process of building our rocket today. Again, the Alpha kit. Just to review, yesterday we got organized. We put everything inside of our plastic baggie. Yesterday we worked on our fins. Our fins are contained inside the bag, and we marked our root edge of our fins. We also sanded the edge to make sure that it was nice and smooth. We also worked on the engine mount. We did some measurement yesterday and got the engine mount all built. It looks like it's all glued up very nicely. We made sure that the engine retaining clip was nice and straight, and this is good. We've got this nice and clean. This is going to be ready to put inside the body tube at some point. So for right now, we're going to make sure that everything that we did yesterday is all still inside the Ziploc baggie, and everything is nice and safe, secure. I'm not going to lose anything. Day 2. Day 2, what we're going to work on today is marking the body tube so that we can get those fins on nice and straight. We're going to mark that, and we're also going to glue that motor mount inside the body tube so that we have time for that to settle. Tomorrow we will glue the fins on. But for today, this should be quick and easy, but it's a very important part. So the first thing that we have to do is we've got to find our instructions, the instructions that we had yesterday. And remember, I mentioned at the top of the instructions the marking guide. So this is on page 2. Okay, the front of the page has the alpha diagram and the listing of all the parts. If you open that up to that page, right there at the top, we're going to cut this out. So that's what we're going to do right now. So reach in your desk, take a moment, go get your handy dandy scissors, and let's go ahead and cut that out. Okay. When we cut this out, we are going to cut directly on the line. Make sure that you keep this shaded part intact. We're going to, again, cut just on that side. And we're going to cut not the dark line on the outside edge, but we're going to cut the inside line where the arrows are pointing. Okay? Just like that. Okay? So we have this cut out. We need our body tube. Remember what the body tube looks like? That's the long one. Asked you guys to be very careful not to step on this or bend it, ding it in any way, because we want to keep the structural strength intact. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to take this guide and we're going to wrap it around the body tube. We're going to hold the shaded part down against the body tube, and we're going to wrap this around, and we're going to line up a couple of lines. Okay, so I'm going to show you down below in the close-up camera. There you go. So we're going to take this marker, lay it on the body tube with this shaded part against the body tube first. Notice this line and that line. Those are the alignment lines that we're going to use to line this up to make sure that it is straight. I'm going to wrap this around, and you're going to notice that it overlaps over the top of this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move this line, tighten this up, and we're going to move that so that those two lines line up with each other. See how I'm doing that? This line matches that line. And in my situation, not quite yet. As a matter of fact, I may even trim this down a little bit more so that I have a better look at that line. Now sometimes this might be a little tricky to do. If you're having trouble with it, there is somebody in your class that has good coordination with their hands, and they'll be able to help you out. So at this point then, what we need to do is we need to make sure that that line is lined up nice and straight. What we need to do is put a piece of tape across this. Okay, so I'm going to reach back over here behind me. I'm going to grab this piece of tape, and if I had clear tape, that would be even better, but all I have is this blue painter's tape. So I'm just going to place that right across the top, like that. Okay, so it's relatively loose. It doesn't matter if it turns, but most importantly, it's wrapped around the body tube, and those lines are lined up so that we're going to have a nice guide to be able to mark the body tube with. Okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to mark on this marking guide. It has FL, that's a fin line. We have LL, that's your launch lug. We have another FL, that's your fin line, rotating it around. Another fin line, rotating it around. And we've already talked about that fin line. So FL means fin, LL means launch lug. Your launch lug is that little tiny piece of straw that I told you to keep in your bag so that you don't lose it. And it's in there, right inside there, right there. So that way we don't lose it. It's the thing that I always forget to put on my rockets, and it can't fly when you don't have one of those. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to mark the body tube using this fin guide that we just rolled on here and taped. The important part here is that you do not move this guide once you start making those marks. You don't want that to move on the body tube. If you want to take another small piece of tape and tape it on the body tube so that it doesn't move, that might be a wise thing to do. So here's my other piece of tape, and I'm going to just place a piece of tape on here. I don't want to cover up the line. See what I'm saying? I don't want to cover up that mark. So I am just going to put it on here like that. Okay? So it's not pretty, but it's not going to stay on there. It's only a guide to help us mark. So now this isn't going to move anywhere. So where this arrow is pointing at, I can just place a little mark right there next to that arrow. See how I did that? It's not hard. I'm going to rotate this until I get to my next arrow, and I'm going to place a mark right there. It's just a small mark. You don't have to draw a line, just a mark. Okay? I'm going to place a mark right here where it says launch lug, and I'm going to put in the initials LL so that I know that that's my launch lug. And that's the line for the launch lug, and that's where that's going to go. Okay? Easy, easy. One more line. I'm going to place a mark right here. Okay, now I'm going to rotate this around. I've got the fin line mark, the fin marked, launch lug marked, and the fin marked. I'm all done marking my body tube. See, and you guys thought that this was going to be hard. I told you, it's not rocket science. This is easy. It's fun stuff. Now I'm going to take this tape off. I'm going to take this tape off. Well, you know, I don't have to take that tape off. I can just slide this off. You can just put that aside if you want to. We really don't need it again, but sometimes you'll have a student that may be absent today that may need to use a marking guide, and you could just hand them one that's already done, and they could slide it on their body tube, and you know, that would be a nice thing to do. Okay, so we've got the body tube marked with these little tiny marks. Now, what we have to do is we have to extend that mark all the way up the body tube so that we have a line running up the body tube. But it's very, very difficult to run a straight line on a rounded surface. We're going to have to think about some geometry here. This is round, and we're going to have to put something on top of this that will overlap and create a situation where it lays perfectly straight. And that's a 90-degree angle. Something in your room that has a 90-degree angle in it, remember it's a right angle, 90 degrees, that will work. If you have the bookshelves in your room, the top counter of that usually works. Sometimes I will use a tool like this. You won't have this in your room, but something like this, that is a 90-degree angle. If we take this and we lay it over top of the body tube, okay, and this one's too big, so this one isn't going to work. We can lay that over top of the body tube. It'll work. This will work fine. I can hold this in there, and then I can just take this and draw my line straight across. But there is something that everybody has, and that's called a door frame, or the door jamb. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil. This is not a pencil. This is your pencil. We're going to take our pencil and the body tube, and we're going to walk over to a door jamb, and we're going to draw a straight line using your door. Okay? It can be the front door or the back door. And once you see what we're doing, you can look around the room and you could find some other things in your room that have that similar 90-degree angle and be able to use that. So we're going to go ahead and leave this area for right now, and I'm going to walk over to the door and I'm going to show you how to do that at the door. So come on, let's go. Don't forget your pencil. Okay, so here I am over at the door jamb, and this door jamb that comes along the side of the door and the side of the frame of the house, this 90-degree angle is what we're going to be looking for to use. We're looking for that 90-degree angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our body tube in that 90-degree angle, and we're going to rotate the body tube until you see that line right there, where you can see that. And I could take my pencil, place it up against that frame, and then I can line up the line with that and start drawing a little bit of a mark. Now, if I keep my fingers out of the way, keep your fingers out of the way, I can draw that line straight down, and it'll have a nice straight line. And this is important that we have a straight line. Draw it back and forth, draw it back and forth, so that we get that straight line. Okay? It's easy. So let's do another one. We're going to mark all those lines. I'm going to rotate this around using the door frame. I'm going to place this where my mark that I just put in hits the pencil mark. Once that happens, I'm moving my finger out of the way so that I don't have my finger in the way. I am lightly pressing the body tube into that 90-degree corner, and I am going to then draw that line up and down, back and forth until it's dark enough. Okay. Again, hold the body tube, press the body tube in there so it doesn't move. You don't want the body tube to move, and you don't want your fingers in the way. So rotating it around, I am lining up that mark, and I am now drawing another line. I'm just going to go up and down with it, keeping the body tube pressed against the wall so that it doesn't move. Okay? Easy, right? Okay, now we're going to do that launch lug line, doing the same thing with that, bringing this back over, lining it up, perfect. And I am all done with that. Rotating around, looking at it, making sure that all the lines are drawn. And they are. They're all drawn. So let's head back to the rocket lab and let's finish doing this. It looks good. All right, we're back. So you should have successfully been able to get your body tube marked using your pencil, and taking a closer look at it, we can see that the lines are perfectly straight across the body tube. And the way that we did that is we used something that was a 90-degree angle, and we placed it over top of the body tubes, over top of that round tube. And when you put something 90 degrees over top of something round, it automatically centers itself, so it creates a perfect space. You can't do that with a ruler. The ruler will slip and slide around, and you can't do that. So we've got the launch lug line drawn on here perfectly straight. We have the fin line. We have another fin line and another fin line. 3 fin lines. We've got 3 fins. Rock and roll, dude. We're ready to go. All right. So what did we do today? We folded our guide so that we knew exactly where to place the marks. It's important for the fins to be on the rocket in the right position. We placed little marks on our fins, and then we took it over to that door jamb and we drew a straight line across. Again, if you have any problems with this, you can take your eraser and you can lightly erase the mistake and just go back and try and do it again. If you have a hard time with it and you need some help, you can always bring the body tube over to me, and I can do it myself, or one of my students can help out. But I'm positive that you can do it because, yeah, you're right. It's not rocket science. All right, so now comes the next part. The next part is going to be to glue the engine mount inside the body tube. I'm making the decision to glue the engine mount inside the body tube now so that we don't have to worry about doing it when the fins are on. I've seen it done before where the fins are glued on and you're trying to get the engine mount in and then you end up breaking a fin. This way we've got this and we don't have to worry about breaking fins. So we're going to glue that motor mount or engine mount in there. Do you remember what I said yesterday that you should do before you do any gluing? Yes, I heard it over there. Dry fit. You should always test it to see if it's able to fit in there. So we want to make sure that this slides in nice and easy, and this does slide in very nicely. So I don't have to do any sanding or cleaning. If yours doesn't just slide in just like that, showing you on the camera down below, if yours doesn't slide in this easily, then we need to do some work. You should not have to force this in and out of there at all. So when you go to put this in, you're going to have to decide which side is the pointy end for the nose cone and which side is where the body tube is going to go. Right now it doesn't really matter because, you know, it's all the same on both sides. But then the question is, Mr. Horvath, how far do you put the engine mount in? Do I put the engine mount so it goes all the way in like that? Or do I leave it flush? Or do I let it hang out a little bit? Well, do you remember that line that we drew that was on here that was 3/8 of an inch in? We're going to put it up to that point. And I told you remember I told you when you were measuring that line didn't have to be too exact? Well, that is just a reference mark. So when you go to glue this in, you're going to push this in and you're going to let it stick out up to that line. So again, taking a closer look at it, this is going to go in right where that line is at that you drew. It's going to go in until the edge of the body tube hits that line. So there's going to be this little bit of the engine mount sticking out. Does it make sense? Okay. So we've dry fit. We know that this can go in and out. That's going to be easy enough. It slides in and out easily. Now what we want to do is we want to put some glue on the inside of our body tube. Okay? And I would say don't be afraid of using glue. We don't want to pour the whole bottle in there, but we want to make sure that there is plenty of glue contacting the surfaces, because this motor mount is going to hold all the thrust from the motor. Remember your unit on force and motion? This is where all that thrust is going to come from, and that glue has to hold this so that when that engine lights, it's going to be able to stay in there. Otherwise it shoots straight through the top, and yeah, that doesn't work well. So we're going to use our handy dandy glue. We're going to pour a little bit of glue on the inside, just squeezing some out, and we're rotating it as we squeeze that glue in there. See how I'm doing that? So I have a nice bead of glue just on the inside of that. Okay? Easy? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my body tube and I'm going to line it up with the engine mount, and I'm going to slide the engine mount in, and I'm going to work it back and forth. I want to work that glue back and forth, going to the camera up top. I am working this back and forth like this, and I'm turning it around, okay, until I'm sure that all of the surface on this is getting glue on it. Okay, so I want to make sure that the surfaces have glue on it, and then when I'm pretty comfortable that there's plenty of glue on both sides, moving it back and forth, I'm going to go ahead and slide it up. I'm going to go ahead and slide it up until I hit that mark. Right about there. And this is going to be good for what we're doing. Okay, we don't have to mess too much with anything more. One thing that we want to double check is we're going to look inside the body tube. We're going to look inside the engine mount, and we're just going to make sure that there is no glue inside this engine mount. Okay? Do you see any glue in there? No? No glue? I think I see you though. Might. Somewhere in there. Make sure there's no glue in there, because the engine's got to slide in and out of that, and if there's glue in there, the engine's not going to be able to slide in and out. So, we have that glued in. Use enough glue. Remember, if you use a little bit of glue, it gets tacky fast. If you use a lot of glue becomes a lubricant, and you can move it and turn it and rotate it around. Most people don't think of glue as a lubricant to make it so it moves around a lot, but it does. So it gets rather slippery and it can move around, so it gives you a little time. Then the glue dries and it begins to set. And that's what we're going to wait for now. So at this point, we are done. We glued the motor mount inside the body tube. We marked our body tube. We're done for the day. We're going to stack this someplace just like that, and I'm going to let it dry. Okay? So now it's time for you to do some math or ELA or science, because this is actually science, so we're doing science too, but that's up to your teacher. All right, guys, so tomorrow we get to start gluing fins on, and that's when we're going to have some fun. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, dudes. Bye.